Today is the day of an important medical conference where doctors from both within and outside the state gather to present their research findings in public. I was eager to attend this conference as a doctor, to learn the latest knowledge. Then, someone who approached me was an elite colleague from the past, who I worked with at a university hospital, now going by the name of James. "Bottom tire doctor, you are still around." James, since his rookie days, has been a despicable person who looked down on me for not graduating from a prestigious medical school. There he goes again with his condescending attitude. James, as usual, couldn't stop his habit of looking down on others once he started. I thought it would be best to leave before it got worse. And just as I was thinking this, my savior appeared. My name is Tyler Mason, 35 years old. Currently, I live with my wife, Leah, and my daughter, Sophie, in a small rural town deep in the mountains. There's really nothing interesting around us. I work as a doctor in a not-so-fancy clinic in this small rural town. Though I work as a doctor now, it's something unimaginable from my past. I was born the only son of parents who were vegetable farmers. During my childhood, I spent my days helping my parents in the fields from morning till night. The vegetables that grew in our fields were delicious, and we even had customers who would come from the town just to buy them. I was proud of my parents' work and even dreamed of becoming a respectable farmer like them someday. But those happy days didn't last long. One morning, as I was about to graduate from elementary school, my father suddenly fell. He was rushed to the hospital, but he never regained consciousness and passed away. The cause was a worsening of a chronic heart disease he had. My father had lived with this heart condition since he was young, and it was difficult to completely cure with modern medicine, so he lived in coexistence with the disease. "How are we going to live now without you?" My mother cried almost every night. I, too, was grieving the loss of my father, but despite being a child, I desperately tried to comfort my mother. But continuing the farming lifestyle was no longer viable, and my mother and I had to sell our beloved home and fields, filled with memories of my father, and move to the town. Life in town was unimaginably tough. My mother worked part-time and tried her best, but living in the town was challenging. I wish I could eat something good tomorrow. That's what I thought about all the time. As these days went on, I became a high school student. My father always used to tell me, "Study hard. Education will never betray you." I took his words to heart, never giving up on studying no matter how financially tight things were. Thanks to my efforts, I excelled in my class. My mother was delighted to see my grades. In my senior year, when everyone was buzzing about college, my teacher, Miss Clark, called me. "Tyler, your career plan says you're going straight to work. Are you sure about that?" I nodded quietly to her direct question, but she looked into my face. "But in freshman year, you wanted to go to college, right? And I heard from your freshman teacher that your dream was to become a doctor." I fell silent at her words. Yes, my dream was to become a doctor. I wanted to save people with heart conditions like my father. That was why I thought so. But there was no way I could afford to go to medical school. I couldn't even bring it up to my mother, and I had almost given up. But she seemed to sense my feelings. Without me saying anything, she gently began to speak. "It's wonderful that you want to work considering your mother. But this is your life, Tyler. You only live once, and there are things you can only do now." What she was saying made sense. I, too, wished I could freely pursue my own life. "If you really want to go to medical school, there are programs like this." She showed me a brochure from a university. The brochure mentioned a scholarship program that covers all tuition fees for 6 years in medical school. The moment I saw it, I couldn't take my eyes off the brochure. "Miss Clark, I don't want to give up on my life. I want to become a doctor." Hearing my words, she smiled kindly. Holding the brochure in hand, I hurried home to show it to my mother, and told her about wanting to try for the scholarship program at the university and my desire to become a doctor. Seeing my excitement, my mother said, "Do what you want to do. I will support you as much as I can." I felt as if a path had opened up for me, and I was truly happy. When I reported back to my teacher, she immediately wrote a recommendation letter, and I studied harder than ever. Effort does not betray. I believe this to be true. My efforts paid off, and I was accepted into the university as a scholarship student with a tuition waiver for 6 years. When I got accepted, The teacher cried tears of joy as if it were her own achievement. "It's all thanks to your support, Miss Clark. Thank you so much. It was just the paperwork I did. You did everything yourself. Congratulations." The teacher said that, gently holding my hand. So that's how I became a college student. The university I attended was a private comprehensive university with a medical school, nursing school, and more. The campus was beautiful, and the lectures were fascinating. Being able to study what I loved every day was the best environment for me. Even though my tuition was waived, I had to manage living expenses since I started living alone to attend university. I juggled a morning newspaper delivery job and a night construction site job, working hard while studying. After 6 years of university life, I finally graduated. I started working as a trainee doctor at a university hospital. That's when I met James. James and I were the same age, but our backgrounds were completely different. His parents were also doctors, and they had made substantial donations for him to become a doctor at the university hospital. Living in a completely different world, there was no way James and I could get along. "So, your name was Mason, right? Which university did you graduate from?" James asked me about my alma mater when we first met. Without much thought, I told him the plain truth. "A private university. Universitia." As soon as I said that, James burst out laughing. Caught off guard by the sudden turn of events, I was taken aback when James made an unbelievable remark. "Universitia's medical school. Bottom tier, isn't it? Surprised you even became a doctor." I was shocked, not expecting such a comment from someone I had just met today. I had no reason to be told such things by a stranger. Annoyed, I decided it was a waste of time to engage further and focused on my work. But James wouldn't leave me alone. "Mason, let's grab lunch together." I was stunned. He looked down on me so much, and now he's asking to have lunch with someone like me. As I lost my words, James looked at me and snickered. "Oh, sorry. It must be boring for you to have lunch with an elite doctor like me." What? Having never met someone who referred to themselves as an elite doctor, I was surprised and stared at him. James laughed and left, knowing or not knowing what he had done. Why would he invite me and then leave like that? Was he looking down on me because I didn't graduate from a prestigious medical school? I resolved to avoid any further involvement with the arrogant and incomprehensible James. The work as a trainee doctor was harder than I thought, but I had things to do when I got home, too. That was to review various surgical methods and research materials. I would often read about heart diseases and surgeries over late dinners. For me, it seemed like there was almost no personal life. Then one day, I met a woman named Leah at the hospital where I worked. She was 23 years old. Leah, 6 years my junior, had just started working as a hospital administrator. Her smile was charming, quickly capturing the hearts of everyone in the hospital. I, too, was no exception, naturally drawn to Leah's kind smile and thoughtfulness. "Hey Leah, let's go out for drinks tonight." James seemed interested in Leah as well, and soon began to frequently ask her out for drinks, but Leah gently declined, saying, "Sorry, I don't really drink." I wished I had a chance to talk to Leah like James did, but with my busy work schedule, such an opportunity never seemed to arise. After several days like this, on my way home, I stumbled upon Leah sitting, hunched over, looking unwell, a stark contrast to her usual smiling face. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" I rushed over to Leah and looked at her face. She was pale, sweating profusely, and breathing strangely. I helped Leah to a nearby bench and bought her some water from a vending machine. Then, at her request, I found an inhaler in her bag and assisted her with it. Her breathing gradually calmed down. I recognized the symptoms. "Asthma, right?" Leah quietly nodded in response to my question. "Let's sit here until you feel better." Leah closed her eyes and leaned on me. The medication seemed to have eased her symptoms considerably. "I'm sorry you had to see me like this." Leah looked at me apologetically. "It's totally fine. My mother has asthma too, so I understand how tough it can be. Don't push yourself." I stood up, ready to head home. But Leah suddenly spoke up. "Wait, please. Would you like to have some coffee? I want to thank you." I insisted that she didn't need to thank me, but Leah was adamant about expressing her gratitude, so we ended up having coffee together. At the cafe, We chatted about trivial things and had a great time. It was like a dream for me, having wanted to talk to Leah like this. Having never felt this way about a woman, it was a strange sensation for me. We lost track of time, talking for hours, and it was already time for the cafe to close. I had a great time. Let's have coffee again soon, Leah said, giving me her contact information. My heart was dancing with joy. After that, Leah and I invited each other out for coffee multiple times. Although she had said she didn't like alcohol, she even went out for drinks with me. The time I spent with Leah was precious to me, and I wanted more. Moved by these feelings, I gathered my courage and confessed my feelings to her. To my delight, Leah smiled joyously and said she felt the same way. And so, Leah and I became a couple. Not long after, rumors that Leah and I were dating began circulating in the hospital, sparked by someone seeing us holding hands. I had intended to keep it a secret, and a sense of foreboding washed over me. As expected, James confronted me furiously. "You're really dating Leah? A plain guy like you, dating Leah? That can't be true, right?" James glared at me as he spoke. While I might not be an elite like James or particularly outstanding, my feelings for Leah were second to none. "Yes, we're dating." As I replied, James's face contorted with anger. "A bottom-tier doctor like you dating Leah is like winning the lottery. I don't think it'll last long, but good luck trying," he sneered. It seemed James genuinely liked Leah. His harsh words were painful to hear, but I brushed them off as nothing more than the sound of a sore loser. Half a year later, I successfully completed my residency and became a fully fledged doctor. With nerves, I found myself in the director's office. "You really want to move to a clinic in a rural area?" the surprised director asked. I nodded firmly. "Yes, please." Hearing my response, the director placed a hand on my shoulder. "A doctor as capable as you will be a blessing for the residents there. Do your best." The director granted my wish and assigned me to a clinic in a remote mountain town. The reason behind this decision was my marriage to Leah. Unfortunately, Leah's asthma had worsened. It pained me to see her struggle. I wanted to live somewhere with a better environment for Leah's sake, so I chose the clinic managed by the university hospital in the mountains. The fresh air in the mountains would be good for Leah's asthma treatment. It was just as the doctor at the clinic was leaving that I submitted my transfer request to the director. Admittedly, continuing as a doctor at the university hospital would mean better income and the chance to engage in the research I love. However, improving Leah's asthma was my priority. Leah agreed with my decision, and we prepared to move to the mountains. On my last day at the university hospital, I was packing my things. Leah had already resigned from the hospital and started preparing for our move. That's when James approached me. "So, you're moving to some clinic in the boonies. Typical of a bottom-tier doctor," James said with a sarcastic smile. His smug expression irritated me, but I just nodded. I knew explaining my reasons for transferring would only invite more sarcasm. It was clear as day. As I sighed, James added, "Poor Leah, marrying a guy like you. Her life would have been rosy with me. We probably won't meet again, but do your best curing patients as a bottom-tier doctor." Poor him. James was as self-confident as ever, but this would likely be the last time I'd see him. As a professional courtesy, I decided to bid him a proper farewell. "Thanks for everything. Good luck to you too, James." With that, I left the hospital. Leah and I began our married life in a small house near the clinic. Compared to the city, the air was clear here. The townspeople welcomed us warmly, often sharing delicious vegetables with us. Though I was worried about city-bred Leah adjusting to this life, she seemed content and always smiled. The best part about moving here was the noticeable reduction in Leah's asthma attacks. I felt truly glad we had moved to this town. The clinic's mornings start early. Consultations are scheduled from 9 a.m., but the townspeople often arrive by 8 a.m. Consequently, my work day starts just before 8 a.m. Leah, who helps with paperwork at the reception, accompanies me to work. Working the same hours alongside my wife feels like a dream. The townspeople often express their gratitude with a smile after my consultations, saying, "We owe you so much, doctor." These words are an irreplaceable treasure to me. Practically the reason I do this job. Though the clinic isn't always busy, I use the quiet times to study. I feel a sense of duty to be prepared for whatever patient may come through the door. I hope this peaceful time continues forever. This was my thought as I worked through the days. 6 years have passed since those early days. I still work at the small clinic. Leah's asthma has significantly improved, nearly reaching complete remission, and asthma attacks have become a thing of the past. Our patients are incredibly kind. It's a life of contentment in an unchanging routine. However, one significant change has happened. Bye, Daddy. My adorable daughter, Sophie, was born. She turns 5 this year. I dote on her so much that Leah often scolds me for spoiling her. But what's cute is cute. Love so deep it hurts. I truly understand this phrase now. With another precious life to protect, my dedication to my work has only grown. Then, one day, I received a call from the director. It was an invitation to participate in a medical conference. These conferences are crucial for sharing the latest information, vital for treating my patients. I decided to attend and informed the director of my decision. He provided me with the details of the date and location, near the university hospital where I used to work. On the day of the conference, with the clinic temporarily closed, Leah and Sophie saw me off. Returning to the city after such a long time felt refreshing. Seeing the unchanged scenery after 6 years, a wave of nostalgia overwhelmed me. Looking around as I entered the venue, I found doctors from various places gathered inside. Working alone in my clinic, seeing so many doctors at once was a rare experience. Overwhelmed by the atmosphere, I was about to take my seat when a familiar man approached me. Still around, bottom tire doctor. Startled, I turned around to find James standing there. He hadn't changed at all in the 6 years since I'd last seen him. Still smirking unpleasantly. It's been a while. Been well. The surprise of running into James was evident. He wasted no time in directing his sarcasm at me. It's been more comfortable at the university hospital without you. My circle's full of elite doctors now. A bottom tire doctor like you fits right in at a clinic. Yeah, I got it. He's comfortable without me around. But this wasn't the place for such talk. Right. You must be important at the prestigious Smith Hospital. Fed up with James's usual attitude, I replied nonchalantly. That's when the director of the university hospital, who had appeared behind James, showed his fury. What kind of attitude is that? Yay, that's right. A bottom tire clinic doctor like him should respect me more, right? Hearing James's words, the director's face grew even redder with anger. What are you talking about? I'm referring to your manner of speaking, James. James looked stunned. You don't know who he is. What are you talking about? James seemed clueless. The director sighed deeply. Haven't you read today's conference materials? Not just that, it seems like you haven't been paying attention to the papers published so far. With that, the director showed James a page from the conference materials. Take a good look at this page. James hesitantly stared at the page. He finally realized something significant, and his eyes widened in shock. Is this some kind of mistake? James scrutinized the document with suspicion. It's no mistake at all. Mason here is the mastermind behind the latest cardiac surgery techniques. I invited him to present his paper in front of everyone today. Bottom tire Dr. Mason developed the latest cardiac surgery. You're kidding, right? Mason is not a bottom tire doctor. He's a more commendable doctor than you could ever be. James stood there, astounded. Indeed, the conference material had presentation of the latest cardiac surgical techniques written on it, with my name, Tyler Mason, clearly beside it. And haven't you seen the numerous papers on heart disease that Mason has published? No, I've been busy with work. James trembled with agitation. As a doctor, don't you think it's your duty to incorporate the latest techniques? Mason has saved numerous lives with these advancements. James looked utterly incredulous, which wasn't surprising. He probably never imagined that I, a clinic doctor, performed surgeries. But how could someone like him perform surgeries? Despite the situation, James persisted in his disbelief. Then, an unfamiliar man approached me. Dr. Mason, that recent cardiac bypass surgery was fantastic. I've read your paper several times over, and it's brilliant. The man excitedly looked into my eyes. Thank you. I'll keep doing my best. Watching me converse with the man, James finally quieted down. Do you see now? Mason is a well-known surgeon in the field of cardiology. He's not someone you can just talk to casually. Incredible. Glancing at my watch, I excused myself from the stunned James and walked up to the stage. Indeed, I had become a well-known surgeon in cardiac care. Even after moving to clinic work, I never stopped researching. The thought of helping people struggling with heart disease fueled my motivation. At that small clinic, I wrote several papers and submitted them to the director of the university hospital, who read them with keen interest. Then, I was invited to perform surgeries at the university hospital, where my work saved many lives and earned recognition, leading to me giving lectures there as well. However, I still couldn't treat high-risk cardiac conditions like my father's. So, while seeing patients at the clinic, I continued my research, eventually developing a new cardiac surgery technique. This technique could even treat heart diseases thought to be incurable, like my father's. I felt deeply gratified for all my research efforts. I became a doctor for this very reason, and I've worked hard up until now for it. When I submitted this paper, the director praised me, expressing his admiration. He then invited me to present this surgical method at the conference. All eyes were on me. My heart pounded faster than when I lectured at the university. Taking a deep breath, I began reading my paper. Knowing it by heart, I didn't need to refer to any documents. After my presentation, the other doctors, who had been sitting, stood up and started applauding. It was the moment my research was acknowledged by my peers. I said thank you and returned to my seat. James, sitting next to me, was looking down, stunned. After the conference, other doctors came up to me, offering their compliments, including the director. "Well done, Mason. Your presentation was perfect. If your surgical technique spreads in the medical community, it could save many suffering from heart disease," the director said, patting my shoulder. As he went to greet other doctors, James approached me. "Life is unpredictable. Who would have thought a bottom-tier doctor like you would write a paper? But no matter how famous you become as a cardiac surgeon, the head of surgery at the university hospital will be me, thanks to the substantial donations I've made." So that was his point. I wasn't interested in becoming a department. My only aim was to help as many patients with heart disease as possible. Besides, his claim about making donations was likely referring to his parents' money. It was just astonishing. "Yeah, it'd be nice to become the head of surgery," I said, ready to head home to Leah, but James just wouldn't let the conversation end. "What? You want to be the head of surgery too? Without making any donations, you think you can become the head? Impossible!" James shouted almost hysterically, laughing loudly. This man was beyond help. Engaging further would bring nothing good. I was about to leave without responding, when suddenly James's demeanor changed. Looking at someone behind me, turning around, I saw the hospital's board chairman and director standing there. The chairman had taken time out of his busy schedule to attend the conference and listen to my presentation. "Who's becoming the head of surgery?" the director asked. The director's face was twisted. The chairman then spoke. "I've heard the discussion. I'm truly grateful to your parents for their substantial donations to our hospital," he said to James. James, grinning proudly, responded, "It's all for the hospital. Such donations are just natural." The chairman's face grew stern. He had more to say. "However, you should learn that there are always bigger fish in the sea. Mason here has contributed even more substantially to our hospital." "What? That can't be true." James's face showed disbelief. The chairman turned to me and said, "Thanks to your donations, we could afford the latest equipment. We cannot thank you enough. Please, don't mention it. My only wish is to save as many lives as possible. With the latest equipment, we can perform advanced surgeries and reduce the risk of overlooking diseases." The director clapped. "You're a model doctor, donating most of your earnings." "Chairman, we don't have anyone else who is as skilled and patient-focused as Mason here." The chairman nodded in agreement. "Indeed, I've been donating all my earnings beyond what's necessary for living to the university hospital. It's all for the advancement of medicine." The chairman looked at me seriously. "We've already decided internally, but Mason, would you consider returning to the university hospital to become the head of surgery?" I was astonished at the sudden offer. I had never even remotely considered becoming the head of surgery. I took a moment to think. Meanwhile, James watched me with frustration, but my decision was already made. I have patients waiting for me at the clinic. I can't leave them to work at the university hospital. Saying this, James's face brightened immediately. That's right. That shabby clinic suits you, Mason. Someone like me is perfect for the head of surgery. I couldn't believe he would say such a thing. As I stood in disbelief, the director raised his voice more than ever before. James, a doctor like you, who hardly reads papers, cannot become the head of surgery. And it seems you're looking down on Mason just because he didn't graduate from a prestigious medical school. You should learn from him and become a respectable doctor. James, shocked, slumped down in his seat. The chairman smiled at my words. To choose your clinic patients over the head of surgery. That's so like you, Mason. The patients at your clinic must feel secure having a responsible doctor like you. You're a true doctor. Keep up the good work. The chairman placed his hand on my shoulder. I am committed to never abandoning my clinic patients. I had decided to fulfill my responsibilities to the end. However, as the chairman left, he said to me, I won't give up on you. His words were profound, but I was thrilled to be called a true doctor. Afterwards, James stopped looking down on me. We met a few times at conferences, but he seemed to avoid me. Free from the disdain of a troublesome colleague, I continued to see patients and pursue research at the clinic. A year passed quickly. Leah, Sophie, and I were preparing to move. Why are we moving? Sophie asked. Leah smiled. Daddy has become the head of surgery to save many people. Daddy is cool. Sophie looked at me with sparkling eyes. Actually, the chairman arranged for a direct bus service to the university hospital for all the clinic patients. This made it easy for those who were visiting the clinic to access the university hospital as well. With the clinic no longer necessary, it was closed, and I returned to the university hospital as the head of surgery. James, who once looked down on me, now groveled in my presence. I continued to save many lives as a doctor, carrying out the mission bestowed upon me from above.